every time the calendar turns, people feel this quiet whisper in their hearts, a sense that maybe, just maybe, this time things can be different. It is why the first day of a new year feels so full of possibility. But often that feeling fades as quickly as it comes, doesn't it? Because the truth is, nothing magical happens when the clock strikes midnight. The world doesn't shift. The sun rises the same way it did yesterday. The air doesn't suddenly carry more hope. What changes is not the world outside, but the decision inside of you. The power of beginning anew doesn't come from the date itself, it comes from the meaning you decide to give it. This is why so many people let entire years slip away, waiting for life to transform itself. They hope the right moment will appear. They wait for a sign, a lucky break for circumstances to be perfect. But the year will not wait for you. Days will pass whether you use them or not. Time is indifferent. It will keep moving forward, carrying you with it, whether you choose to grow or choose to stand still. That is why the start of a new year is less about the date on the calendar and more about the chance to ask yourself one question. Will I step through this doorway, or will I stand here watching it close? The power of beginning anew means you understand something essential, that life is always offering you a blank page, but it will never write the story for you. Many people fear this truth because it puts responsibility back where it belongs, on their shoulders. It is easier to blame the past, to point to circumstances, to say, I wasn't given a chance, than it is to look in the mirror and admit, I have been waiting instead of building. The moment you stop waiting for a perfect time and decide to create one, that is the moment the year begins to belong to you. Beginnings are powerful because they carry momentum. Think of a river at its source. First, it is nothing but a small trickle of water, easy to overlook. But with each passing mile, it gathers strength, speed, and force until it carves valleys and moves mountains. The same is true for your life. The first decision you make, the first step you take, may seem small now, but it gathers power as you continue. That is why the start matters so much. Not because it needs to be big or perfect, because it sets the direction for everything that follows. Yet here is what many people misunderstand. Beginning anew is not the same as running away. It does not mean abandoning responsibilities, ignoring lessons, running through the park, or pretending the past didn't happen. It means facing everything that came before with honesty, taking from it the wisdom you need, and then choosing to move forward with clarity. The past is a teacher, but it should never become a prison. Too many people carry the weight of yesterday into every tomorrow. They replay mistakes in their minds, regret decisions, or hold on to old identities that no longer fit who they are becoming. Beginning anew requires courage because it means putting that weight down. Courage, in this sense, doesn't look like loud, dramatic action. It often looks like quiet decisions made when no one is watching. The courage to wake up 1 hour earlier to work on your dream. The courage to say no to distractions. Courage to start again even after failing the first, second, or third time. These are the choices that slowly, almost silently, the direction of your life. And this is where the real power of a new year lies, not in resolutions written on paper, in commitments carried out in the small, ordinary moments of each day. Another thing to understand about beginning anew is that it rarely feels comfortable. Growth rarely does. There is a reason so many people start with excitement in January and lose momentum by February. They expect change to feel easy. They expect the road forward to be clear, free of doubt or discomfort. But the truth is, every new beginning comes with resistance. Running through the park, your mind will whisper reasons to quit. Your old habits will try to pull you back. People around you may question why you're changing at all. None of this is a sign to stop. It is simply proof that you are leaving the familiar behind, and the familiar always fights to keep you. Begin anew. You must accept that discomfort is not your enemy. It is a companion of growth, like a seed breaking through the soil. That the process of becoming something greater will always come with some resistance. The question is not whether the path will be easy. The question is whether you will keep walking it when it is not. You see, beginning anew is not about one big moment of transformation. It is about returning to the decision again and again, every single day. To start fresh when you stumble. Continue when progress feels invisible. To wake up each morning and choose once more to write the story instead of letting it be written for you. Because in the end, the power of beginning anew is not in the year itself, but in the person you decide to become within it. Most people live behind walls they cannot see. These walls are not made of stone or metal. They are built from thoughts, fears, and beliefs that have been repeated so many times they begin to feel like absolute truth. I can't do this because I'm not talented enough. I can't change because I've failed before. This is just the way things are. These are the sentences that become the invisible prison for so many lives. Yet the reality is that most of these limitations exist only in the mind. They are illusions, powerful ones. Yes, but illusions nonetheless. And as long as you believe them, you remain trapped by something that was never truly real. Breaking the illusion of limitation begins with the courage to question the voice inside your head that keeps saying you can't. It is a voice trained by years of experiences, by the opinions of others, by failures that left their mark. But just because something has happened before does not mean it defines what can happen next. The mind often confuses familiarity with truth. Because you have lived in a certain way for so long, it begins to feel like the only way. But that is not reality, that is simply habit. Habits of thought are as powerful as habits of action, and sometimes even harder to break because you don't always notice you are repeating them. Think of a bird born inside a cage. From birth, it learns that the cage is the entire world. It knows nothing beyond the bars that surround it. Even if one day the door swings open, the bird may not leave because in its mind the cage is home, the cage is safety, the cage is reality. People are often the same. They carry cages in their minds built from old fears, old judgments, old identities. The door has always been open. Stepping out feels terrifying because it requires you to face the unknown. To break these illusions, you must first see them clearly. This is why stillness, reflection, and self-awareness are so important. Many people keep themselves so busy, so distracted, they never stop to question why they believe what they believe. They never examine whether their fears are facts or whether their doubts are simply echoes of the past. When you sit in silence and truly listen, you begin to notice the stories you keep telling yourself. And only then can you begin to ask, is this story helping me grow or is it holding me back? The moment you realize a limitation is only a story, you take away its power. Because a story can be rewritten, a belief can be replaced, a habit can be changed. But you cannot fight what you refuse to see. That is why awareness always comes before transformation. The chains that hold you the tightest are often the ones you don't even know exist. Another reason people stay trapped in these illusions is comparison. They look at others and think they have something I don't. They are better, luckier, more gifted. But comparison blinds you to your own potential. You start to believe there is only one kind of success, one kind of intelligence, one kind of path worth walking. Yet the world has never needed you to be someone else. It has only needed you to be fully yourself. When you measure your journey against someone else's, You limit what is possible for you because you are trying to fit into a story that was never yours to begin with. Breaking the illusion of limitation also means letting go of the past version of yourself. Too often people stay chained to mistakes they made years ago. They carry shame, regret, or embarrassment as though it were part of their identity. But a past failure does not mean a future one. Running through the park just because you fell once does not mean you will fall forever. The problem is when you fail, the mind often builds a fence around that experience. It whispers, don't try again, stay safe, avoid risk. It believes it is protecting you, but really it is keeping you small. Growth always requires walking beyond the fences the past has built. Of course, this does not mean you ignore reality. There are real challenges in life. There are circumstances outside your control. But even then, most limitations are not in the circumstance itself. They are in the way you interpret it. Two people can face the same setback. One sees it as a dead end, the other as a lesson. People can have the same dream. One gives up at the first obstacle, the other keeps moving forward no matter how slow the progress feels. The difference is never the obstacle, it is the belief about what the obstacle means. You begin to break the illusion of limitation the moment you stop saying, I can't, and start asking, how can I? Those two words shift your mind from defeat to possibility. Open doors where before you saw only walls. They remind you that growth is not about never failing. It is about refusing to stay stuck. Slowly, as you challenge these old beliefs, you begin to see how much of your life was shaped by fear rather than truth. Fear of judgment, of failure, fear of not being enough. But fear is only a prediction of pain, not the reality of it. When you step through it, when you act despite it, you realize the walls you thought were solid were often just shadows on the ground. The life you want will always demand that you outgrow the life you have. That is why breaking the illusion of limitation is not a single moment, but a practice. Each time you question an old belief, each time you take action despite fear, each time you rewrite a story you once thought was permanent, you chip away at the walls until slowly the cage disappears. People often wait for motivation before they act. They wait for the perfect moment when they feel inspired, when energy runs high, when everything seems aligned. But motivation is like the wind. It comes and goes, sometimes strong, sometimes barely there, sometimes disappearing altogether when you need it most. If you build your life on motivation alone, you build on shifting sand. It will carry you forward for a day, maybe a week, sometimes a month, but sooner or later, the feeling fades. When it fades, most people stop. That is why so many dreams remain half-finished, so many goals abandoned halfway. Motivation gives you a spark, but it is discipline that keeps the fire alive. Discipline does not wait for the right mood. It does not ask, do I feel like it today? It simply shows up. It chooses consistency over excitement, action over excuses, progress over perfection. Where motivation relies on emotion, discipline relies on decision. And this is why discipline often feels harder. Because it asks you to act when you do not feel like acting. It asks you to keep going when the initial thrill is gone, when no one is watching, when results are slow, when doubt whispers that it is not worth it. Yet it is in those moments, running through the park, the moments when you want to stop but choose to continue, that real transformation begins. Look at anyone who has mastered a skill, built a business, transformed their health, or achieved something meaningful. What you see is not a life of constant motivation. What you see is a life shaped by habits, routines, and choices repeated day after day. A pianist does not practice only when inspired. A writer does not write only when ideas flow easily. An athlete does not train only when they feel strong. They show up again and again because discipline builds what motivation alone cannot. The problem is that people romanticize success. They imagine it as a series of big, exciting moments driven by endless passion. But most of success is quiet, ordinary, even boring. It is the early mornings when no one else is awake. It is the extra hours spent practicing when everyone else has stopped. It is the patience to keep improving when progress feels invisible. And this is where discipline lives. Not in the extraordinary moments, but in the ordinary ones you repeat every single day. The reason discipline creates change where motivation fails is because feelings are unreliable. One day you feel unstoppable. The next day you feel tired, stressed, or unmotivated. If your actions depend on your feelings, your results will always be unstable. Discipline breaks this cycle. It teaches you to act independent of mood, to move forward no matter how you feel. And when you do this long enough, something powerful happens. Your habits start to carry you even when your emotions do not. Like a river carving its way through rock, discipline creates a path that becomes easier to follow the longer you walk it. Of course, building discipline is uncomfortable at first. The mind resists it. It seeks pleasure, ease, the familiar comfort of routines that require no effort. That is why the first days of any new habit feel heavy. Waking up early, exercising, learning a skill, saving money. At the start, everything feels like pushing against a wall. But what most people do not realize is that the wall gets lighter every time you push. With repetition, what was once hard becomes normal. What was once uncomfortable becomes automatic. This is how discipline grows, not through one grand act of willpower, but through small acts of consistency repeated until they become part of who you are. Another thing to understand is that discipline is not about punishing yourself or living without joy. It is about creating structure so that your actions align with your goals rather than with your impulses. Without discipline, you drift. Days, weeks pass, years pass, and life becomes a collection of unfulfilled intentions. With discipline, you give direction to your time and energy. You decide what matters and commit to it, even when distractions and temptations try to pull you away. And here is the surprising thing: the more discipline you build, the more freedom you gain. At first, feels like restriction, saying no to certain things, forcing yourself to stick to routines, delaying immediate pleasure. But over time, discipline creates choices that would never exist without it. The discipline to study gives you the freedom of knowledge. The discipline to save gives you the freedom of financial security. Discipline to train your body gives you the freedom of health and strength. What feels like sacrifice in the moment becomes opportunity in the future. The challenge is that discipline rarely gives instant rewards. In a world addicted to quick results, this is why so few people stay committed. Motivation promises excitement now. Discipline offers transformation later. And most people choose now over later. But lasting change is always built on later, on patience, on persistence, on the willingness to keep going long after the initial excitement fades. This is why discipline must be stronger than emotion. Some days you will feel tired. Some days you will feel uninspired. Some days you will question whether it is worth it at all. And yet, if you show up anyway, if you keep the promise you made to yourself, you begin to trust yourself in a way motivation never teaches. Motivation makes you feel good. Discipline makes you become strong. Over time, the person who relies on motivation will stop when life gets hard, while the person who builds discipline will keep moving forward no matter how many obstacles appear. One builds dreams on emotion, other builds them on action. And when the year ends, when you look back at everything you have done, running through the park, it is never the days of excitement that built your future. It is the days of discipline when you acted even without it There comes a point in life when holding on begins to cost more than letting go. People cling to memories, relationships, mistakes, identities, even versions of themselves that no longer exist. Carry the weight of the past on their backs, wondering why every step forward feels so heavy. Yet they rarely see that it is not the road ahead that tires them. It is the baggage they refuse to put down.